Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. If you are watching and not listening, yeah, I have a Daffy Duck sticker on my head. And that is a sign of a father who can't say no to a daughter who expected me to have this Daffy Duck sticker on my head when the podcast was over. So, for my baby girl, I'm going to wear a Daffy Duck sticker on my forehead for the duration of this podcast. However, let's not let that distract us from the... Actually, I'm going to take it off. I just won't rip it. She's going to come up. She's going to be able to feel it. She's going to be downstairs right now watching her little movie. And she's going to be like, Daddy, you're going to rip it. And I did too. All right, we're good. My guests today are people that have been on this podcast before. They're ex-members of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, a.k.a. the Plymouth Brethren Crazy Cult. And we are here today to talk about something very specific. And that specific situation regarding the cult is this. It's called the Rapid Relief Team. And it is a volunteer side of the Plymouth Brethren cult where they go and they like give out food and drinks and stuff like that to support things like local firefighters and other things that they have no business supporting, since oftentimes the cause that they're supporting, they are the root cause of inside their church. So here to help me break down all of this stuff is Richard Marsh and Cheryl Ho. Guys, how are you?
Yeah, good. I'm good.
Welcome to the show.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday was a big day for you in the anger front.
Yeah.
I'm told. So, okay. Cheryl, can you help us explain just what the Rapid Relief Team is? And are they present in all of the chapters, or is this just in Canada? How does this work?
So they came about when the charity status was lost however many years ago. And this is what they came about to help support communities, because that was one thing they were lacking. They were lacking, their charity status was lacking their assistance out into the public and into communities. So they developed this RRT, and it's now used very much as a PR boost. So you'll find out it like pops up in places that really need the PR boost. And it's all over. Yeah, every place has one.
So the idea is it intended? Sorry, did you just say that they activate the RRT when a certain community needs a PR boost?
Mm-hmm.
So you think that this might be a reaction to all of the stuff that's been happening on this podcast with Jesse Brown, whatever that has to do with Maple Creek?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it was there. I shared a post on Facebook that I found. Someone sent it to me from, I think it was September 4th. So they were there on September 4th too. So, I mean, most ex-members we know, right? So it's hard for people on the outside to understand why I got so riled up when I saw this. Because I know underneath what it means. And I know inside what people inside tell us what's going on. And honestly, my story aside, like, no, you guys, nobody should be supporting this kind of occultic group with everything that's happening around the world, around the globe with it. I mean, yes, in Canada, it's just starting to be very much exploded, starting in the States, but overseas, I mean, it's everywhere. I just don't see how people can watch the stories that are coming out from the ex-PBCC members and can turn around and like support these people. And I mean, I'm not saying that there's not good people inside there. There are good people inside there. But the thing is, the whole hypocrisy of this whole situation is that these places that they're showing up at, they're like 100% of the cause of, like women's shelters, mental health things, and drug and alcohol addiction centers. Like, it's just absolutely absurd that they wouldn't take care of their own kind that they have forced out and excommunicated from, but yet they've developed this most glamorous website and RRT group to have this most, they're just so compassionate and they're so Christian like, and it's just like blah blah this and blah blah that. And I mean, if you go on any EB Facebook page, we're all puking our guts out every time one comes out, because the hypocrisy of where they're at is absolutely absurd.
I want to just quickly, and we'll bring Richard in a second. I just want to quickly go. I have a bunch of images of a bunch of different RRT things, and I'm just going to go through them one by one, just because I think that might be easier, and then we can. And Richard, you'll come in. So this is another Maple Creek one. RRT volunteers from Maple Creek were thrilled to collaborate with the Mustard Seed and distribute 50 holiday food boxes to vulnerable families in Medicine Hat, Alberta.
I never got one.
RRT hopes these cheerful gifts were able to bring some joy and relief to families in need during this holiday season. Now, just really quickly, the irony on something like that is that if one of the people that they gave these meals to were like, hey, come have dinner with us, they wouldn't go, because those people would not be brethren, right?
Yep.
So they
don't celebrate Christmas either.
They don't?
No, they don't celebrate Christmas. They don't celebrate Easter. They don't celebrate Halloween. They don't. They don't celebrate any of those holidays.
That's kind of weird, isn't it? Who is it? The Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that either.
Yeah, it's the
right?
same as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have that one. That one's now they start getting a little ironical. This is in Edinburgh. Team today has delivered 20 Christmas family food boxes to the Women's Aid East and Midlothian charity to support women and their children who have experienced domestic abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, if that is not, they could just literally like make the meals, put it in the box, and mail it to themselves, right? Like, really, at the end of the day. So that's, I mean, it's not hilarious. It's really fucking sad, to be honest with you. That is like, when you hear about the, like coaches or something, like anytime that you have like a spokesperson that you find out like for anti-drug campaign, you find out later that they're a drug addict, right? Like that and it's still like, and they're still using, and then they go on TV and say, don't use drugs, I'm clean, blah, blah, blah. But then they go home and they shoot up a speedball into their arm or something. It's just, I find it a little crazy. So there's that. There's this one. No, that's the same one. 2020 has been a challenging year for all, regardless of wealth, health, or status. The RRT is thrilled to bring joy this holiday season to those who have been hardest hit by this global pandemic, which we don't believe in, through RRT's Christmas edition of the food box, arriving on the doorstep in the United States very soon.
Pull that one back up. We got to go to the corner of it.
Oh,
the
right.
whole irony of it.
Bringing families together for Christmas.
Like they're the farthest
known for splitting families apart are advertising that they bring families together. It's almost as if, and I'm going to go on a limb here, that a lot of these things that they support in public, behind closed doors, they either don't support or they're part of the problem of whatever issue that they're. Richard?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And when they start talking about supporting mental health charities, that makes me really angry, because the amount of mental health problems that they've caused is shocking. And in fact, they're probably, most mental health clinics, you'll find the brethren are wildly overrepresented.
And alcoholism is a big problem, right? Inside the brethren, isn't it?
Problem. Yeah, they negotiate special quantity discounts with the clinics. I mean, I'm not joking. They do. They have special deals with them because they can send so many people their way. It's just a kind of revolving door. I mean, there's always some of them in there.
So they utilize like Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that? Like
well, they utilize the big private clinics. I mean, it's all on their
okay, like Promise in those clinics.
Yeah. Going back to the RRT, I found out very recently, someone pointed out to me it was just a carbon copy of the Billy Graham RRT. Billy Graham is like the big evangelical thing in the USA and in Canada. and they have this rapid response team, which was operating, I think, in Australia. And they do exactly the same thing. They go around with these very big sign-written vehicles. Subtle difference here. These guys here, these Billy Graham, relief guys, they're having a little prayer meeting there to kind of support someone in distress. Brethren won't do that. They won't pray with you or put their arm on you or touch you because you're a worldly person. So the brethren just stick to the food bit, right? No, it's all very hands off. But the brethren literally in 2012, when they lost their charitable status in the UK, they just literally lifted that Billy Graham RRT logo, changed the color, made it bright red instead of red and black, and called it the Rapid Response Team RRT instead of the Rapid Relief Team RRT. I mean, I'm surprised Billy Graham hasn't sued them for plagiarism and
I'm sure they're
infringement of
paying him a
copyright.
little.
But the other thing to understand is that the brethren, their own rules and regulations going back to the 1960s state explicitly that you do not give money to charity. I mean, it right from the leader of the day, James Taylor Jr., he sort of writes in his letters, I do not give money to charity. Money is for the brethren, not for charity. So, I mean, and when I was a kid growing up, we would never give money to charity. Someone's in the street, shaking a collection box. We don't give money to charity, not even like small change.
Well, even Brethren members, when they shop online on Amazon, can put in a code for that so that a certain percentage goes to a charity. But then all the charities that pop up are all Brethren charities.
Well, exactly, yeah. Well, this is the other point. And this is very interesting. The Brethren in the UK, because the Charity Commission regulates charities closely, they actually have to publish their accounts for what they call the Grace Trust, which is the Brethren's main kind of charitable collecting organization. And they collect, I don't know, 20, 30 million or more every year from Brethren and Brethren businesses. And of course, they all get tax relief on it because it's a charitable, the Grace Trust is a charity. Now, when you look through their accounts and see how they spend that money they collect, 98% of it goes to Brethren's own organizations, mostly to their school, and then to a bunch of other Brethren internal charitable organizations. And just 2% of all that money actually goes outside of the Brethren community to things like the RRT and kind of a short list of kind of virtue signaling sounding charities. So it's just, they get tax relief on the whole sum, which is effectively, like an extra 30%. And then 2% of that money actually goes outside the Brethren community. So in other words, every time, their RRT thing looks very generous, but in fact, for every dollar they put into RRT, they're effectively getting $30 back. So it makes money for them by establishing their charitable status.
Gareth Hales stole 119 million pounds from the NHS. The RRT prides itself in supporting emergency services. A new fully equipped ambulance costs about 70,000 pounds. The 119 million pounds that Gareth and Charles Hales stole or received from the government, I guess, would purchase 1,700 new ambulances for the NHS. And the question to the Department of Health and Social Care from Nick Smith, who's a Labour MP in the UK, to ask Secretary of State for Health and Social Care whether any government department has taken steps to investigate why payments made to Unispace Global Limited, which is a UBT company, were not reported by that company in its financial accounts, and if he will make a statement. And then the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Edward Argar, said the department paid $603 million to Unispace Global Limited for the purchase of personal protective equipment in 2020. And then they partially met its contractual obligations, supplying the National Health Service with 484 million pounds in items of PPE. So that would leave about 140 million pounds on the table. We are working with the company on a commercial resolution for the remainder of the contract. Issues concerning the accuracy of filed accounts are a matter for company's house. That's just the government's way of saying we're looking into it, and it will be punted down the road probably for another year. But I mean, in a the interesting part of this, I find, is that conservative governments everywhere, especially in Western countries, are infamous for for stating, anyways, that they don't want to burn government money. They want taxes to be low. They don't want governments to spend their way and into a deficit and then a recession and all that. And a very conservative organization like the Plymouth Brethren, at least from a religious standpoint, is getting conservative governments everywhere to spend tons and tons of government money on something that they don't really get anything out of. Like, the whole whistle. I know you can't talk about it, but the whole whistleblowing thing that you went through is a similar story. There always seems to be these stories where it's like they get a government contract. The government contract is for X. They deliver partial X, and then they keep the rest of the money. Like, it just seems like that's the pattern. Is that what you're seeing, Richard?
And they get away from it. They get away with it.
Yeah. Is that basically it?
You assume that there's some kickback. You assume that when the Conservative government in the UK tries to get re-elected by sort of underground and mysterious paths, a whole lot of that money is going to come sliding back through PACs and advertising and hiring private investigators to see if they can dig dirt on the Labour leader.
Yeah,
one suspects.
So the thing about Maple Creek, Cheryl, why did it make? What was the anger really about yesterday? Like, tell me when you saw that. Tell me where your mind went as far as the people that live in that community are concerned.
Well, just probably first explain what happened in Maple Creek yesterday, because I'm not sure we really covered that yet.
Well, that was the question about anger. I figured you would cover that part, Cheryl. Go ahead.
You know what? I honestly, I said to somebody earlier, I said that the day that I broke, when I had that figured out what I was leaving 30 years ago, that broke in me yesterday. I had never gotten so fucking angry in all of my life. I had it was sent to me, and I couldn't deal with it at the time. It's just, I had so many people from Maple Creek reach out to me, like so many people on all the platforms that they could possibly reach out to me. And then for me to have that sent to me, I felt so betrayed. I thought, how is this little tiny town of Maple Creek supporting and allowing the PBCC to even have a public image like that in the time that they're in? It was just absolute. I was just overwhelmed with emotion. I was so overwhelmed.
And
it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. And I had people messaging me being like, well, you know what? Maple Creek didn't know what RRT was. And maybe the volunteer firefighters didn't know all the ins and outs of everything like that. And then it was like, well, how can you hold one group of individuals accountable for, or how can you hold a group accountable for one person's sins? And I'm like, yes, you can. In a group like PBCC, everybody that is in there is accountable for what happened. When it's public and everybody knows about it, I know that there was people in Maple Creek that would have known who the RRT is, or at least who the members are. It's a very tiny town. I'm sure when they showed up there, they would have known the people. They were from the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. They should not have been allowed to set up their fucking tent.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, my cell phone's ringing in the background, and I don't want to get up and get it. But it reminds me of the Catholic Church. It reminds me of, because there's a lot of there's a good point that people have sometimes, which is that, I criticize the Catholic Church all the time. I used to do it a lot more. And the idea that there is a, thousands or millions of people, billion people, I guess it is, who would remain a part of the Catholic Church after finding out not only about the sex scandals involving pedophile priests that was happening all over the world, but the fact, the laziness of the press in informing the public that a former pope, Pope Benedict, was the author of the internal policy that actually ordered the diocese to send the priest to another church. He wrote it. And then he became pope. Wow. He was Cardinal Ratzinger when he wrote it. And then he becomes pope. And that's one of the reasons I think, why he resigned. He's like the only pope ever to not die while a pope, right? Like he resigned.
Yeah.
And that emperor-looking motherfucker is still walking around somewhere because he's, he lives in the Vatican. But I mean, it reminds me of that. Like, but I think one of the problems is, in fact, I know the main problem with the PBCC is that they are not a household name, and I'm just talking about Canada right now, and B, they're not painted as a cult yet. Like it's really just ex-members and myself and a couple other journalists or whatever that are trying to like spotlight this. And I'm beyond. I'm past the whole frustration part. I'm not going to sit there and rant about how frustrated I am. I'm just going to keep going. But that must be one of the problems. Like, because everyone should have the automatic response when they see that group, the RRT, going and doing stuff for firefighters or whatever it is that they're doing, and immediately be like, "Oh, the cult thing." Like,
I shouldn't be supporting these people. Yeah, I shouldn't. They're hiding a pedophile. It's funny. I sat down today and I counted how many people inside the PBCC at the time that everything was happening, we knew what was going on from people that I've heard from now. 12 people. 12 people knew about what was going on. I actually had a story. Somebody had opened up to me about this about a month ago. And he witnessed me being taken from his parents' place with my mom was there in between Sunday churches by a lady in a car. And I was taken out to the junction. And he said, my mom sobbed because she thought I was going to be sold. And I'm like, it's just so heart-wrenching when I hear these stories and that these adults did nothing about it. And then I get told that, well, there are kind people in there. There are kind people in there. But you know what? We have got to quit pussyfooting around this. We've got to quit walking on eggshells. We have got to realize that this is an actual serious pandemic that is happening inside of Maple Creek. And to the point where I had another phone call, and knowing full well that phone call came to me from inside there, knowing that Ellen is still actively seeking out teens. Literally, it's mind-boggling. So that's why I get fucking frustrated when something like that shows up for me. And I'm like, I feel like I'm this mother who is trying to save the kids of Maple Creek because the community of Maple Creek are too fucking afraid to step up against the PBCC.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the hypocrisy level of any religious organization is usually pretty off the charts, but this is ridiculous. Like when you see them going, like that one with the rainbow flag. I think it's this one. No. It's always the last one. Is it always the last one? Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think it was the first one I said.
Right. So, and this is in Australia. So let's just piece this together in the most biased way, yet probably the most informative way I can come up with. This is a country where there is an ex-member who was gay, who the church hated gay people so much that they got him to take the same drug they give to chemically castrate pedophiles. But if you would like to join the rapid relief team in helping, obviously somebody with the gay pride angle, they'll do that. They won't touch you if you're holding one of those rainbow flags. Probably they wouldn't touch you anyways, either way. But they'll go and they'll do their PR spin. Like, it's gross. Like it's really disgusting that they would like. I mean, I can't even think of.
The RT is a facade. It is an absolute thing that was created to save their charity status. It did not come from their hearts. It did not come from compassion. It is there to save face. Do we have that? There was a conversation that was happening about the public media. Did that get sent to James?
The which? Sorry, say that again.
There was a conversation where the RRT was coming out and they wanted to make sure that they were getting the public exposure that they were getting.
A Press Progress article about the Winnipeg police
Yeah.
I have that
Yeah.
from a while back, but I don't have that on me. But you know the story, so go ahead. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Richard. You probably can tell it better than I can.
Yeah, well, this was an article by Press Progress. The RRT had been supplying food boxes to the Winnipeg, I think it was the Winnipeg Police Service to give out to homeless people or something. And someone inside the Winnipeg Police leaked a bunch of emails from the RRT to the Winnipeg Police, their media communications team. And these were emails just begging the Winnipeg Police, when are you going to put this up on the website? We want some more publicity. We're doing this because we need the publicity. Just kind of begging the police to make as big a deal as they possibly could of the fact that the sort of incredibly wealthy Plymouth Brethren were handing out a couple of dozen food boxes. And it just proved that the whole point of the RRT is publicity. I mean, they're literally ambulance chasers. And the whole way the thing is set up, they've got these tents with RRT, and it's all bright red. Everything's bright red. The tents all say RRT on them. They all wear RRT uniforms with RRT on them. And the sort of venues they attend, what governs whether they go somewhere or don't go somewhere, is the likelihood of the press being there. So maybe it's a marathon, maybe it's a fun run, maybe it's an accident scene. It's all governed by whether the press is going to be there, because the whole aim is just to get their photo in the paper, just to actually be seen doing something charitable, so that next time the government challenges them on their charitable status, they can pull out a whole sheaf of newspaper articles showing their volunteers handing out food at widely publicized events. And of course, the volunteers are not paid. They have to do it because it's a system of coercive control. So if you're told to go and spend your whole Saturday handing out burgers to people you don't like, you just have to do that.
This is that Winnipeg story. Winnipeg police agreed to promote secretive and strict religious sect. Internal emails show. Experts say internal emails suggest a controversial sect sought to use Winnipeg police to generate positive publicity. That's from Press Progress. The Winnipeg Police Service partners with a benevolent community group on a charity food box program last year, despite questions raised by local media outlets about the group's parent organization, a secretive religious sect. Internal emails newly obtained by Press Progress through Freedom of Information show Winnipeg police not only agreed to give the group positive publicity, but police were repeatedly pressed by the group into using their social media channels to give them maximum exposure. Between November and December 2020, a group called Rapid Relief Team Canada collaborated with the Winnipeg Police Service to provide 130 emergency food boxes to people in crisis in Winnipeg. RRT characterized the food box program as an emergency food bank. The program was publicized through the WPS Facebook and Instagram accounts and through local media like the Winnipeg Free Press and CBC Manitoba, though none noted the group's ties to its parent organization. On its website, RRT identifies itself as an initiative of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, an organization previously described by the Winnipeg Free Press as a secretive and strict religious sect. According to a 2014 Free Press investigation, former members described the PBCC as a cult, alleging that the PBCC limits its members from interacting with worldly people, that's in quotes, including not visiting the homes of non-members. So, I mean, that's what's so funny about it, is that they're doing volunteer work. This is what proves, in my mind, that the whole thing is a PR blitz, as you guys both informed me it was when I first heard about this group, is that they would not, because of the rules within the church and outsiders and all that, the people that they're helping, they can't touch, they can't eat with, they can't hang out with, or maybe they can hang out.
They're taught to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that latest quote? It's not that we haven't loved enough, it's that we haven't hated enough.
Yeah.
That was the latest quote from BDH.
Yeah. The thing to me that I find, there he is.
Yeah, I just this is the part of the show. Every time I do a Brethren podcast, I just like to wish out loud that I can't wait for this guy to meet this woman. Okay, that's Marie Hanine. Again, we want this guy. I'm just throwing this into the universe in case that shit's real. To meet this woman. Okay, there we go. All right. good.
I can tell you which one I'd like to meet.
Yeah. Oh my God. If I start talking about Marie Henein, we're going to be done. This podcast will be over quickly or will be a lot longer than I expected. Yeah. So anyways, this is par for the course for them. And it appears that it is a reaction to bad press, especially when I was just reading that article, just, another example of that, because they did get bad press in Winnipeg. It was like the year before, where ex-members called it a cult in the Winnipeg Free Press. And then lo and behold, now they're pressing, then they became, putting pressure on the Winnipeg Police Services to big them up.
Yeah, you got to balance it.
Yeah. Which is crazy, because they're not allowed to be cops either, are they?
No.
What are they allowed to do? Just work for Brethren companies and that's it?
They build their businesses. It's building businesses. Yeah.
So, and women, are they allowed to work?
If they're not married,
No. Yeah, if they're not married, they can, but not once you're married.
And they can't have authority. They can't be over any males in the business, so they limit it to the bottom deck.
But still better than non-members. It's like they're only.
Oh yes, and that's what when you hear of ex-members or non-members that worked for the police or worked for the PBCC, their stories all have the same underlying theme of how badly they were being treated and how they were the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, it's interesting when I talk to a couple of people who haven't been on the show, so I won't say their names, but one ex-member and one person that wasn't a member but worked for a PBCC company. That guy, he would describe lunchtime at the office as just like, it was like high school, he said. It's like going into the cafeteria as a nerd in high school, where all these people are all eating together, breaking bread together, and you can't sit there. Or if you see them in a restaurant, you might be able to come over and say hi, but then at one point, one of the members is going to be like, we're about to break bread, so get the fuck out of here, or whatever they say, right? Like you can't sit here when we eat the body of Bruce Hales or whatever it is. It's, I don't know. I still am kind of like trying to figure out if I'm one of those guys where I'm like, if I tell people that are listening or watching to do something, I don't know if they're going to do it or not. I don't know how convincing I have to be in order to make someone do stuff. I'm probably not going to be a good cult leader one day if I try, but is it like calling your local representative seems like the right call to do on paper?
Yeah.
And I would encourage people to do that. Unless they're a conservative, or maybe even more so if they're a conservative, because, you'd like to know if the non-reaction says something about what the possible relationship is between that member of parliament, if that happens to be what it is, or provincial assembly or whatever, legislative assembly. It feels like treading water sometimes. But, I think you were telling me, Cheryl, about the reaction to people posting that on Twitter and making comments on the Facebook page. Was that they decided then the police service in the fire department in Maple Creek decided to take all of it down? Is that right? Yeah,
so they didn't end up taking it down. So after, I went rogue last night, as anybody who watched my live saw. And it did work. They did take, that was the thing, is I wanted the publicity not to happen. I wanted that all to taken down. And I want those, the police and the firefighters and every kind of thing that's in there that the RRT like to go to. You should be having walking around in Maple Creek with poles coming out of wear something on your waist so you're not even touching the PBCC.
Wow. Yeah.
We should be separating from them.
Yeah.
I have the new rule. I no longer you should not be having anything to do with them. You shouldn't be supporting their businesses. You shouldn't be supporting them in any way, shape, or form. And I understand it's a small town, but how else? This is what I was saying last night is these are children. These are children. So I challenged Maple Creek to, when you go to bed tonight, ask yourself if you have children or grandchildren or whoever, teens in your house. I want you to take that child and drop it off at Ellen's house in the morning. And if you can't do that, then you need to do something about it, because we have to draw a line. You're either on one side or you're on the other. You're helping the situation and we're going to try and get this change, or you're enabling them. I mean, we can't sit quiet anymore. There's no more.
I agree with that. I mean, it's, you know, and especially someone like yourself, Cheryl, like you, like the frustration, like it must be really exhausting being you, because I've seen you go from highs to lows in, like, you know, in days or whatever, hours even, like, because there's a lot of stress attached to being kind of the symbol of hope, Cheryl, hope, you know, like it must be kind of exhausting. So when you see, you know, this like miniature PR arm of the cult that did so many awful things to you and people that you know, including yourself, Richard, you know, it must be, you know, like you must feel like you're at your wit's end sometimes.
Yeah. And that's where I got last night. Like I honestly didn't even know if I was going to be able to formulate words, but I knew that by the messages I was getting and everything else, I just knew that, you know what, you guys, you need to fucking pull your heads out of your asses. I don't like getting like I did last night. I hate getting to that stage. I absolutely hate getting to that stage, because it reminds me when I was 16 and I lived in that stage for how many years until I left. And it's exhausting just staying in that stage. But I was told today I need to learn how to become a bitch. So I guess I'm going to this is my birthday on tomorrow. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's year 48. Year 48 is, you know what, to fully embody being born on Halloween and I become the Scorpio bitch that I need to be.
Well, I mean, no disrespect, but you're a wife, so you already know how to be a bitch, don't you? Like, I mean, it's kind of... Sorry, I'm projecting again. You know what's funny though? When you start dropping F-bombs on this podcast, like the last time that you were here, and then ex-members are like, you know, I really could have done without hearing all that profanity. And it's just like, so you skip all the sexual abuse and you go straight to profanity? Wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Was that said? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And I seriously made a commitment. I wasn't going to come on here and I was like, hey, Cheryl, keep the F-bombs. Just keep them down. But I get so riled up that I don't think people are listening until I put a few of the fucks in there in order for people to realize that I'm being serious.
Yeah.
Like, I've been so kind and respectful of this whole situation up until this point. I'm constantly realizing, okay, so if I do this, how does it affect Maple Creek? If I do this, how does it affect my parents? If I do this, how does it affect if this happens? It's this constant trying to manage my inbox and how to respond to that, and know that I am that person that people are looking at. So how am I representing myself? That all went out the window last night. And I'm like, no, I just need to be me. And you're either going to like me or you're going to love me. You're going to get used to the F-bombs. It's the only way I can release this crap out of me.
My favorite is when, you remember that time I was being all polite and you were like, I don't want anything bad to happen to this church. And like, I'm not trying to like it. And then like, you know, 4 months later, you were like, James, I'd like to burn it down with you. I'll bring the matches. You bring the jerry can. You didn't actually say that. That's satire, everyone. The real kind, not the Jeremy Mackenzie kind. But
you know, it's just,
yeah.
It's like, I know there's kind people in there. I know there is, but what is kind? Like, seriously, kind people inside there, you're still hiding everything. You're still covering everything up.
I think there's victims there, right? I would say that there's victims there. And the way that they're being victimized turns them into enablers. So they're all enablers. And I feel that way about Catholics too. And at least I did. Well, I probably still do. Like, I haven't thought about them in this context. I guess I have. The idea that you can belong to a church who had such systemic problems with pedophilia means that if you go to the church, you enable them. In fact, I feel so strongly about that, that I feel like I've enabled them. When I found out that the only way to get your name removed from any census data that has to do with being Catholic, you have to go to the actual church that you had your baptism in, and then if you move somewhere and like, you know, you had it, like in my situation, I had a first communion in Montreal and in Whitby at St. John's the Evangelist. So I'm registered at St. John's the Evangelist as a Catholic. I'm like still part of the flock. And so I honestly am I feel so strongly about not wanting to be an enabler that I want to do this thing where I call to action all of the lapsed Catholics to get them to go to their old churches and have them removed from the archives. Because the reason why there's still so many, like the numbers of Catholics in Canada always rises, even though atheism and agnosticism also is always rising, which is almost impossible when your country is like 73% Catholic. And the reason why it's like that is because all these people are getting counted twice. So if you answer a poll, if I answered a poll, if I answered a poll from CBC that said, are you this, that, or the other thing? And one of the options was atheism, I'd be like, atheism. But they're getting their data for Catholicism from the diocese. So I'd be in two pools. You know what I mean? Right. And so the math never really is going to work out. So anyways, to circle back, the enablers at the church are a little bit more innocent, I would say, than Catholic enablers, because the Catholic enablers, although brainwashed by things like, you know, vampirism and zombieism and cannibalism, all that shit, I don't fucking understand why everyone does it. Like the whole idea of the cross and the guide nailed to it is just like I have these moments now where I'm like driving, like where we're driving around the countryside, and there's this like one property that has this massive cross with a massive Jesus on it. And, you know, for those who don't know, he's got nails in his wrists and nails in his feet, and he's got a cut in his side and a crown of thorns. This is a tortured man on display, and people are like, yeah, that's great. Like, and I am now at the point with my atheism where I'm just like, that is what ISIS would do to somebody. And I don't know why we are saying that this is a good symbol for a religion. But beyond all that, y'all are not brainwashed from birth in the same way as the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church members are. And so I give a little bit of a pass to the Plymouth Brethren members, you know, who like the families that won't leave with the mom or dad that leaves. They to me are victims more so than enablers. Would you guys agree with that?
I do agree with that. I do. But I think there comes a time and point where our voices out here have to get loud enough to realize, like, I guess I'm done holding space and holding this box that puts everybody in all these different little piles. Now I got everybody in one pile. It's just, for me, it's one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's literally one side or the other. I don't care where your roots are. I don't care what it is. I drew the line last night, and it's like, you're either enabling Ellen, you're either enabling the PBCC, or you're out here and you're going to try and help me make some change. That's what I'm at, because it's not about me. It's about the kids. It's about the teens. It's about the next generation. This is nothing like.
If there's any teens from Maple Creek watching right now, I am not saying that you should go get a can of spray paint and write the word cult on all the business owned by the PBCC in Maple Creek. I don't think that would be a good idea. I think that you should probably think twice before doing something like that. And also, don't get any spray paint on your hands, because, you know, it's hard to come off. But really, like at this point, what else is going to work but guerrilla? I'm not saying, fuck, I don't care. Do it if you want to do it. I don't give a shit. But like, you know, but what I mean, there's guerrilla tactics. Like, I mean, I imagine, like, you know how election signs come out during election time. Well, it'd be fun to just put out signs that people see no matter where they turn in town, and it's just like, you know, and they're cult signs. They're describing like the Plymouth Brethren Christian cult, and they just like, and just little subliminal stuff to remind people that they're part of a cult. Like, I've never been in a situation before where you're trying to like show a country or from a community like Maple Creek all the way to the national level that this organization is poisonous. It poisons local communities like Maple Creek. It poisons provincial governments. It poisons federal governments. Like, there is no shortage of damage that this group can do. So instead of trying to, convince members to leave, which I think is also a good idea. That's not my area of expertise. I think you guys would be obviously better at that.
We've been doing that.
Yeah, but to teach to increase the awareness of what this group is, so that they finally become a household name, and that people realize that this is an actual cult. Like the way that everyone, I think by now, when they hear the word Scientology, they think cult.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Plymouth Brethren, we need something like that too. Richard, what are your thoughts on that, buddy? Because I need.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to kind of sum up a little bit what actually happened in Maple Creek. There's this going back 30 years, going back to when Cheryl was a very, very young child, between the ages of 3 and say 12. There was not just one pedophile inside the Brethren. There was a whole system, and at least 10 responsible adults, including the leading Brethren in the Maple Creek community, were all complicit in trafficking out this child as some kind of a sex slave. She was used for making pedophile pornographic movies. She was sold to different groups of people, Hutterites, individuals, taken up, trafficked at the motel. She was abused in just about every way you could possibly imagine. Every form of sexual perversion was done to this child. And then the very people that enable this kicks her out from her home and family and abandons her. And at the same time as this was happening, 17 other young people in the Maple Creek Brethren community were put out on the streets. And these are young people between the ages of 12 and 20 for the most ridiculously minor offenses, like stepping on a Bible or swearing at their grandfather or speaking to someone else who has already been withdrawn from by the Brethren. These are horrific things that have happened. So this has all become public. This has all been put out in the public. Now, what could the community, what could the Brethren in Maple Creek have done in response? They could have reached out to Cheryl. They could have offered some kind of apology. They could have said, this is terrible, we're looking into it, we will collaborate with the police and we will get to the bottom of this. They could have reached out to all those other 17 people they kicked out. So what did they decide to do? Well, we'll set up a nice bright red tent at the fire station, and we'll get a few packs of out-of-date Walmart cheap burgers, and we'll fry them up for the population. What a brilliant idea! You know, cost you all of $20. I mean, that is why Cheryl is wildly angry and why I'm wildly angry. It's such a mean and, I mean, inappropriate isn't the word. It's just an insult to everyone and everything. Yeah. I mean, Maple Creek is Cowtown. Maple Creek is the home of great Canadian beef. They couldn't even spring for a steak or two. No, it's going to be burgers. I mean, how cheapskate can you get? This is the wealthiest cult in Canada, serving, and you know, they probably got them out of the bin at the back of the supermarket. I mean, it just
the reduced food.
So, it's such a there aren't words. Yeah, there's no word. There's just not a word.
Cross and ignorant and blind, stupid response.
And you know what?
Leanne Schaefer says it's very disturbing, and also that Richard can speak truth so gracefully. You know, just before you start sending love letters to Richard, we all know it's the accent, but go ahead, Cheryl.
Here's the thing: is I had what got me so hard was that when you had I felt like 3/4 of Maple Creek was supporting me, had messaged me, had reached out in all these different ways. And then when that showed up, I was like, are you kidding me? I guess I just asked Maple Creek that if you guys aren't going to fully support me, I don't want to hear from you. That's how angry I am, right? That I'll find people to come to Maple Creek who truly care, who are not afraid of the PBC. I'm not afraid of them. If I had known about that, I would have shown up right next to them. You betcha I would have been playing my banjo, even though I don't know how to play one. And I would have been there with my F-bombs, and I would have been on the other side with my tent doing what I needed to do. So you just got to get, if you care enough, the fear just goes away. It doesn't matter. If you can't look at a child, every time you look at a child, I want them and everybody to realize, hey, what can I do today to make sure that we're on top of this whole PBCC thing in Maple Creek and worldwide? But I'm targeting Maple Creek right now, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's just this morning I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I don't want anybody's freaking support if you're not going to give me 100% fully support. When I get messages that says, okay, we fully support you and we're behind you, Cheryl, there's lots of people behind you. When there's an instance like this, you're not showing me that you're behind me. So that I feel like I'm completely alone tackling this town of Maple Creek. Like, it's like when people get like, oh, sending you prayers, sending you love and light.
Yeah.
It's just a Band-Aid. So I don't want any Band-Aids. I Band-Aided my fucking self for 30 years. I don't want any more Band-Aids. I want people to actually walk what they're telling me. So if you support me, then let's find a way to deal with this. And I mean, for me right now, it's getting into anybody in government that you can email and send letters to. I don't care. It needs to be put in there. Number 2, we need a protest. And I'm like, I would go worldwide. Everybody needs to start having protests outside of these communities that have PBCC in them, because they are all responsible. I am not the only story. I know we had there was a guest on here who was just messaging, or I saw in the comments, from San Antonio. And she's actually going to come on our podcast this week, but it won't air for another week. But anyhow, it's just not my story. The thing is that when we get these large volume protests, people start listening because we're being annoying. Even though we're not trying to be annoying, we're just trying to be like, come on, save your children. Like, that's literally what I'm having to protest. We're having to protest that they should keep pedophiles separate from the children. Like, seriously, it's 2022 and look what we're asking. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. We should do a...
I'm ready for a protest.
Do you guys know when Bruce Hale's birthday is? Because that'd be a good day for the worldwide protest. Happy birthday, Bruce. Here's thousands of people worldwide protesting your organization. Seriously. Like, it has to be like, we can figure this out. We'll talk about this off air because I think we should. I would like to get down to Maple Creek and literally just have just set up a little table and a chair where the Plymouth Brethren Church is in the background and just broadcast for hours,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
If you think about it, they photobombed the Maple Creek Fire Service, and this is kind of virtue signaling, but it's worse than that. It's virtue stealing. They don't volunteer as firefighters, but no, they're going to get their photo taken in front of the fire station to kind of get a little bit of the sex appeal of the firefighters. It's just pure photobombing. So let's go and photobomb their dingy meeting room and their dingy school. I mean, just appear out there. They're not going to like it.
What is it like, Cheryl, the actual building where they worship? Like, can I just walk up to it, or is there a gate?
Oh no, you've got how tall is that fence around all of them, Richard?
I think the Maple Creek one is just a 4-foot fence, but most of them have got 6 to 8 foot fences.
4 foot?
Yeah.
Oh, even my short ass can get over that fence.
No, I think they changed it. I think it's higher.
I've got a new one,
yeah. Anyhow, but no, and you can't. So they lock the doors when they go in. Like, you can't just walk in. And the gates. Like, you cannot get in. You can't get in. Like, how charitable is that?
I have an opposition defiance disorder that makes me just want to get in now that you said that. Like, all I want to do now is just get in somehow. I'll dig a goddamn fucking tunnel. Yeah, that's right.
So someone from Maple Creek, she just says, no, it's 6 feet. So,
okay.
It's a 6 foot fence.
Well, I can still get over that. It would just be fun to just dare them to arrest the guy that's been broadcasting all of the ex-members from,
Well, I mean, you know what happened in Sydney, Australia? Ex-member Lance Christie went out to Sydney, Australia, and wanted to make a kind of a speech in front of Bruce Hale's house. He was just going to have a talk and, appeal to Bruce Hales to take down the barriers of separation. He's a very, very peace-loving guy, Lance. So he wouldn't hurt a fly, and he's all about reforming the Brethren. And so he stands up on the grass verge outside Bruce Hale's house on the public street. There's another ex-Brethren guy taking the video, and Gareth Hales, who's the one who stole all the money from the National Health Service, he suddenly comes bursting out of his mansion, which is next door to Bruce Hale's mansion, and tackles the guy who's using his phone as a video camera, grabs him by the back of the neck, and forces his head down towards the ground, and is desperately trying to take the camera, the phone, away from the guy. This kind of backfired, as most Brethren things do,
because the footage is out
there,
there,
isn't it? The camera was filming the whole time, and so you've actually got this kind of view from kind of somewhere near the ground of this guy bent over double, and Gareth Hale saying, "Don't video, don't video," and you can hear Lance Christie say, "Gareth, relax, let go of the man," and it was a violent assault. And this is for someone simply standing in the public road outside his house, just trying to film a peaceful appeal to the leader to kind of break down this separation and let families actually reunite. So, that's the reaction you get if you want to film outside one of their places.
Wow.
There's some good footage in Lane's documentary of him and his friend try and go back into the church, and there's actual audio of their conversation, and that really spoke to me when I listened to that audio. I was like, that's exactly how they talk. And like, to the outside people, you wouldn't believe that those kind of conversations go on, but that's how those conversations go.
There's another video taken on Australia by the national broadcaster cameraman outside one of their meeting halls.
I saw that. Wasn't that New Zealand?
No, I think that was Australia.
With the white T-shirt guys. And
yeah.
They're hilarious.
I can't remember, some profanity. I'm not sure what it said, but I mean, it was like vicious language. Are you an opposer? Are you an opposer? Stop wasting time, you fucking cunts, and they kind of run off. Like, whoa.
That's but in their defense, Richard, that's exactly what Jesus would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, they were brainwashed to say that. But yeah, they don't like it if it's not them behind the camera, It's fine for them to send out private investigators to film ex-members and video them in public and take photos of them, but when they're the subject of a little bit of investigation, they get violent and very, very angry.
And that's the way the Scientology leadership is too.
Yeah.
They'll send camera crews. They'll put up like security cameras across the street from where an ex-member lives, private investigators, all that. But as soon as that camera turns around onto them, they're just like, hey, what the hell is happening? What's going on? You're just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like the hypocrisy level again. It's just a key ingredient anytime you're dealing with this kind of thing.
I mean, we can sit here and talk about this forever and ever and ever about everything that's happening, but it's like, what are we going to do with it? Seriously, like, what are we going to do with it? Like, I am so done sitting. I mean, we went public on the end of June it was. So we're like, we're at 4 months where we've just been kind of sitting here and percolating. But if the town of Maple Creek has had 4 months to do something, the PBCC has had 4 months to do something, and here we sit.
Well, in our defense, we're doing more than sitting, but I think
us. I'm talking about like the community of Maple Creek itself.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know, I live in a small town now. Okay, I live in a town of like 800 people, and I work in a town of I think there's like 13 or 1400 people in that town. So I'm like, the last 5 years, I've been sort of getting reacquainted with small town culture, because I did used to live in Saskatchewan like a long, long time ago in Weyburn for a year, and I'm still in therapy over it. But the idea that small towns have a very interesting way of never noticing the scandalous shit that's sitting right in front of them. And I find that perplexing. There's no cults in this town. There might be, but I don't know. But there is no Plymouth Brethren situation in these towns. But if like, I used to write stories, I still do, for the Madawaska Valley Current. They're a local media organization inside Barry's Bay. And I report on their council. And their council is in this weird situation where the law firm that represents them and the integrity commissioner are in cahoots and basically overbilling the township like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like demonstrable like malpractice. And I published so many articles about it, and nobody fucking cares. Like, and they don't care because they're apathetic. That would be one thing. They don't care because it's their cousin. You know, they don't care because they grew up with the person that I'm talking about. So they literally like don't bother at all looking at the offense. And in Maple Creek, that would be the enabling of this cult organization. They look at it as, you know, you're asking me to do something that will damage my curling buddy. And so it becomes one of those situations. So I don't know if I knew how to wrap my head around that. Like, is there a little newspaper in Maple Creek?
Yeah, because I tag Maple Creek News. There used to be a Maple Creek News, and I tagged them in something yesterday. So yeah. I'm assuming it's still there. And I get that. Maple Creek News. Yeah. And I completely get that. And that's some of the confidentiality stuff that's come my way is specifically for that reason. It's why it's confidential, right? It's why they don't want me to use their name. It's why I can't put the story out there, or why I can't give it to the police. But I guess, again, it just comes down to like, so at what cost? So you're willing to sacrifice kids and teens? You're just willing to sacrifice? That's what's happening. People are just being sacrificed. Yeah. Because no one wants to rock the boat.
You know, the only thing the Brethren really understand, the only thing they really care about is money. So if you want to make some impact in Maple Creek, you've got to touch them where the only place in their body where they actually have a nerve, which is their back pocket. So for anyone in Maple Creek or in the area, if you take your business elsewhere, don't take it to any of those cult businesses, boy, you'll get a reaction fast.
Yeah, and we were talking about that the last time that you guys were on about the businesses and how the money is probably the key to all this. There is a lot of what would I say? Not nepotism, but just the idea that everyone knows each other in a small town is enough to scare people to not want to say anything. So even if they don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, there's still like a sort of tendency to be like, well, I don't want to be the person in the community that like, you know, that caused trouble for this person or that person. And they don't have the ability to like weigh on the scales in their mind the importance of, stopping a pedophile versus the importance of not being seen as a person who brought trouble to the community. And it's like, they think that bringing trouble, they think the thing that would heal a community, they would describe as bringing trouble to the community, because they're probably not confident. Exactly. They're probably not confident that these people would be held accountable anyway, no matter what they do. You know, so.
And that's the whole point, is we know in anything in this world, like that's how this planet works. And in order to transform something, you don't have nobody gives you a fucking magic wand and says, do it's fixed. Right. It has to go through its deconstruction and death and be taken apart so it can be rebuilt. Like that's what I was trying to get through to this bishop, this How to Write bishop that had contacted me. And I'm like, you should not be more concerned about your institution not falling than the care of the children that's in that community.
An institution is meant to fall if it has those kinds of problems. Its destiny is to fall.
Yeah. So I challenge like my parents, my siblings, all those. It's okay. It's okay if something deconstructs and crumbles to the ground. You can build it back up. Yeah. Just build it back up better. Like that's the whole point of this, is let it fall. I'm not going to judge you. Nobody's going to judge you. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, well, you know what? It needs to fall so that it can be put back together better.
Well, in order to help that fall, here are all the businesses in Maple Creek that are owned by the cult: Arrow Equipment Inc., Cortec Quality Presentation Products, By the way, these are all the most boring named companies I've ever encountered in my life. I'm falling asleep reading the list. Cutting Edge Doors and Woodworking, Jayco Construction, Northridge Marketing Limited, Prairie West Yard Care, Ridge Pro Roofing and Contracting Inc., Rural Tax Services, and Sunny Slope Feedlot. I can't tell if that's a restaurant or where you go buy shit for your pig, but either way. Now, these businesses are all owned by cults. Does everyone that are owned by the cult, does everyone that works there have to be a member too, or are you not sure about that rule?
No, you can have outside people. Actually, two of those businesses, one's my sister and her husband's business, and one's my brother's business on there.
I'm sorry.
And I had no issue. I don't know. Don't use them.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're gonna sit there and not take action with everything they know, then sorry. You're not going to listen to me. These are all doors I'm knocking on, and the doors I've knocked on so far aren't working. So we're going to knock on other doors.
What's the population of Maple Creek?
I don't know. Somebody asked that to me today, and I don't know. Do you know, Richard? I'm just.
You'll have to find out.
2,084.
How many?
2,084.
Yeah, it's not very many.
No, it's not very many. So a town like that would probably have that's probably half the businesses. You know, I'm not talking to
no.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I don't know if it would be half the businesses, because it's still, no, there's more businesses than that. But I mean, yes, it's a good portion, right? And especially Cutting Edge. Nobody should be supporting Cutting Edge. Absolutely nobody should be supporting Cutting Edge.
And that's because your perpetrator, his family owns
he's got ties to it, but we also know of the stories that go on inside there, and that this is straight. I'm going to say his name, Tim Bond. Gosh, Tim Bond. Literally, I got to meet him one time I think it was my dad had a stroke or my mom was in the hospital. He took me aside and he had all this compassion and I didn't know your story was so bad. And this is before I didn't tell him about the sexual abuse and everything that went on with me. This was just how I was being treated with priestly visits. And he was just floored and gave me all this compassion. And then I find out from somebody who is not a ped that worked at Cutting Edge. And she went to him about what was going on inside there, and he did nothing about it. So, I know the ins and outs of what's happened in Cutting Edge. There was somebody with special needs there. Everybody was pulling down his pants. There's it's just they're bold. They just don't give a shit, and they take what they think they own. And that's what Ellen was like with me. He thought he owned me, and he might have. He certainly may have owned me. It's probably why my mom thought I was so scared that I was going to be sold. But that's how I always felt. I just felt like Ellen owned me.
You were just an item of trade. You were an item of trade for them. Just a way to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found out from somebody that prior to my dad's accident, they were trying to actually leave the cult. So my mom was 14 when she was brought into that cult. She wasn't born into it. She was 14 when she was brought into it. So she knew of what the outside world was like. She knew it wasn't as bad as what it was. So for me to get that information that they were thinking of leaving the cult, and then it was weeks later that my dad had that accident, and then I find out that Ellen most likely probably was at the site of the scene, and then you put together this whole story. And then I have these priestly visits where my dad was taken and he came back and they asked for the phone bills. That never made sense to me. And one of the things that I always fought my parents about when I got really rebellious is why did they need the phone bills? Right? So it's just you can see this whole cover-up operation. So even though that my parents may be victims, my siblings may be victims, these people may be victims, I'm not giving them that excuse anymore. I'm really not giving them that excuse. It's literally, you're here making a difference or you're enabling them. There's only two choices right now.
Well, we're going to continue to try to do everything that we can to help, people stand up and make a difference. I'm going to follow your lead, Cheryl and Richard, because you guys are the unfortunate experts in this area. But I'm going to keep going and have you guys on whenever the hell you guys want to come on, and
You know
we're going to
what,
keep.
James,
Yeah.
we're so appreciative. Like, we really appreciate you ripping the Band-Aid off this and taking the stab at, your life, and, having weird cars show up on outside your house. And
It was a different kind of stress that was a pleasant replacement of the usual kind of stress that I deal with. So it was okay.
I know, but you have to know that we all appreciate that. Like, we appreciate you, right?
Yeah.
Even there's
100%.
even if there is many different faiths between everybody that appreciates you, they appreciate you being the one that said, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance. Let's take a chance on this, and look where it's gone, right? So had you not taken a chance, like, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that you and Richard did all the heavy lifting. But you know what? I think we do make a good team. I think, I have this platform. We have a book. I have a book coming out in next year about the cult. The Jesse Brown stuff that's happening. You guys are doing your own podcast, which I fucking love watching, because you know what I like about it? It's not about all the stories that you share about the dark side of the cult. It's when I can see you two, Lane and Carmen, all laughing at the same time. Because of all the shit that you guys have gone through. Like the Cheryl, the stuff that you've gone through is just a nightmare. Richard, you are completely estranged from all of your children and your ex-wife. Lane and coming from kind of like a high class Brethren family, and then the nasty shit that happened to him when he was young, and then Carmen being literally on the family tree of a former leader is all very, very stressful. And to watch you guys find a way to sort of laugh, especially when you all do it at the same time. Like, I remember I was watching, I think it was the second podcast you guys did. Anyways, and I paused it at one point. I was just like, I wanted to figure out if I could send it to you, because it was just like, like if you guys collected all of the horror stories and made it into one person, that person would not be smiling. But there you guys all are at the same time, kind of like smiling. And I think that is great. And if I had some sort of small role, in making something like that, happen or something or whatever, then I'll take that partial credit, because I think you guys are great. But let's not get it twisted. You guys did all the heavy lifting. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, there's no references to pop culture in our podcast.
That's right. And that's why I laugh hysterically.
You sent me the Family Guy thing of Bruce Hales, and I was like, I'd never watched Family Guy before.
So funny. Well, listen, thank you guys again for coming. We should just do this. Like, we'll figure it out on a weekly thing with you two would be great. Like, even if it was on the Lord's Day. Like,
so much every Lord's Day.
Yeah.
There's so much to dig up. There's so much to unpack, right? That it's impossible to do it like in an hour, right? There's just so much to unpack.
Yeah, no, I agree. And guys, whoever's listening or watching, you're going to hear some of the things that we said that we've covered before. But as Cheryl was saying before, we just need to keep on pressing. We need to keep on,
repetition.
One of our hopes is that one day a reporter from, CBC or CTV or whoever, it doesn't even matter, will be like, hey, I'm going to look into this and start talking to us on a regular basis and start doing something that more eyeballs can see. But we're going to keep going until then, because, eventually there will be a tipping point where people are going to know what this organization is all about. And I hope, and you guys are going to be leading that charge. So Richard, Marsh, Cheryl, is there anything you guys need to say before we go, or,
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys, for coming. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye. Cheryl Hope, Richard Marsh, once again, big ups to them. They're brave, a lot braver than anything I've ever done. My gosh, especially, both of them, just totally different things. Cheryl, and all the abuse that she suffered is obviously a nightmarish thing. And to watch her speak from a position of strength, you guys have to remember, when I first started talking to her, this was all something that she had kept to herself, basically, for the most part, except, I think her husband and her therapist knew. And then when I started talking to her from the point where I met her to now, I'm not saying she wasn't strong at the beginning, and she was, but watching her now, she's emerging as a leader. And I don't think it's her trying to be a leader. I think it's her just organically being a leader, and people are inspired by that. That's why countless people inside and ex-members of the cult email her to sort of make themselves feel better, knowing that they're not alone. And Richard is to me one of the strongest. First of all, his character is beyond reproach, and I met him in person, and he's a wonderful person. He's a wonderful human being, and he has every right to be really angry, and really bitter with a substance abuse problem or whatever, and everyone would understand, but he's not. He was able to sort of convert all of that bad energy into strength, and I respect it so much. Okay, this week on Blackballed, tomorrow we have Jeffrey Perlman, who is the author of the new book called The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. I'm looking forward to that because I loved Bo Jackson when I was young. So that's that. On Tuesday, we have Jesse Brown on the show. Jesse Brown tomorrow is releasing Ratfucker, which is the pod series about David Wallace. David Wallace was on the show last week. He'll be on again next week. And then on Wednesday, we have Megan Murphy. Megan Murphy was banned on Twitter. I don't know if she's banned anymore because of the Elon Musk takeover, but she was banned on Twitter, but it was for a ridiculous thing. People that have questions or people that disagree with with gender theory or whatever were getting banned left, right, and center at one time. So she's going to be on the show on Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday. I'm still working it out, but we're going to have shows then as well. So I would like to thank again Cheryl and Richard for coming. Thank you, everybody in the comments. This is where I'm supposed to say smash the like button and share it. So to go do those things. I always feel stupid when I do that because I'm not a good sales guy when it comes to selling my own shit. And we'll see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.